Breaking soulmate news, they finally realized your worth, now they're coming back with a confession. My beloved child, stop for a moment and listen carefully, because this message is reaching you at a very important point in your journey. Something has shifted behind the scenes. Something that you could not see, something that you may not have expected, and something that may completely change the way you look at your soulmate connection. They finally realized your worth. They finally began to understand what they lost when they walked away, when they became distant, when they stayed silent, or when they allowed fear, pride, confusion, circumstances, or outside influences to come between the two of you. My beloved child, there was a time when they thought they could simply continue living without confronting what they truly felt for you. They tried to convince themselves that distance would make their emotions disappear. They tried to stay busy. They tried to focus on other things. They tried to pretend that everything was normal. But something inside them refused to let you go completely. Your memory continued returning. Your presence continued appearing in their thoughts. The moments you shared continued replaying in their mind. And now, they are beginning to understand something they could not understand before. Your value was never determined by whether they chose you quickly or slowly. Your value was always there. You were always worthy of genuine love, honesty, respect, commitment, and emotional security. My beloved child, this is not a message asking you to chase anyone. This is not a message telling you to abandon your dignity or wait endlessly for someone who refuses to communicate. Instead, this is a message about a shift in awareness. Someone connected to your heart may be reaching a point where they can no longer ignore the truth of what they feel. They may have tried to suppress it, but suppression is not the same as healing. Silence is not the same as forgetting. Distance is not always the same as detachment. Sometimes distance gives a person the space to finally recognize what was standing directly in front of them. And this is what seems to be happening now in this story. They are looking back, and they are seeing things differently. They are remembering your kindness. They are remembering the way you listened. They are remembering the moments when you supported them even when you were not required to. They are remembering the way you made them feel understood. They are remembering conversations that seemed ordinary at the time but became unforgettable later. They are remembering your energy, your patience, your smile, your words, your presence, and even the little things they once took for granted. My beloved child, sometimes a person does not understand the value of something until they experience its absence. When you were always available, they may not have understood what your presence meant. When you stopped explaining yourself, they may have begun to wonder why. When you stopped chasing, they may have started feeling the space you left behind. When you focused on your own life, they may have realized that you were never meant to spend your entire life proving your worth to someone else. You were meant to be loved without having to beg for basic recognition. And now their perspective is changing. There is a difference between someone missing you because they are lonely and someone recognizing your value because they have genuinely reflected on what happened. You must understand this difference, my beloved child. Your heart deserves clarity. Your heart deserves truth. Your heart deserves actions that match words. So if this person returns, do not simply listen to what they say. Observe what they do. Watch whether their behavior has changed. Watch whether they communicate differently. Watch whether they take responsibility for their past actions. Watch whether they are willing to have the difficult conversations they once avoided. A true confession is not merely a sentence like, "I miss you." A deeper confession can sound like, "I understand now what I did wrong. I understand how I hurt you. I understand what I lost. I understand why you had to step away. I want to make things right." My beloved child, that kind of realization carries weight because it is connected to accountability. And this is why you should not rush. You do not have to make a decision based on excitement alone. You do not have to immediately open every door simply because someone knocks again. Let them show you who they have become. Let time reveal whether their words are genuine. You have already learned lessons through this connection. You have already experienced moments that tested your patience. You have already wondered whether they cared. You have already asked yourself why someone who claimed to love you could behave in ways that caused confusion. But perhaps one of the greatest lessons was learning not to abandon yourself while loving another person. My beloved child, hear this clearly: loving someone does not mean losing yourself. Missing someone does not mean chasing them. Forgiving someone does not mean accepting repeated disrespect. Having hope does not mean ignoring reality. And believing in a connection does not mean you should stop living your own life. Your soulmate journey, whatever form it ultimately takes, should lead you toward greater self-respect, not less. There is something else you need to understand. This person may be experiencing an internal battle right now. They may want to reach out, yet fear what your response will be. They may wonder whether you have moved on. They may wonder whether you still care. They may be afraid that they waited too long. They may be afraid that the version of you they once knew is gone. And perhaps they are right about one thing: you have changed. You have grown. You have learned. You have become more aware of your own value. You are no longer willing to accept confusion as proof of love. You are no longer willing to interpret silence endlessly. You are no longer willing to carry an entire relationship by yourself. My beloved child, your transformation may be one of the reasons they are finally noticing what they could not see before. When you were constantly trying to keep the connection alive, they could rely on your effort without examining their own. But when you became quiet, something changed. Your silence created space for their own thoughts to become louder. Suddenly, memories began speaking. Suddenly, questions began appearing. Suddenly, they started comparing the emotional connection they had with you to everything else around them. And they may have discovered that not every connection gives them the same feeling. Not every person understands them the same way. Not every conversation feels the same. Not every presence creates the same sense of familiarity. But remember, my beloved child, familiarity alone is not enough. A healthy relationship requires mutual effort. It requires emotional maturity. It requires honesty. It requires respect. It requires communication. If this person is truly coming back, let them come back with something more valuable than nostalgia. Let them come back with maturity. Let them come back with clarity. Let them come back with courage. Let them come back ready to speak the truth they were once afraid to speak. Perhaps they have been rehearsing a conversation in their mind. Perhaps they have imagined what they would say if they had another opportunity. Perhaps they have typed a message and deleted it. Perhaps they have opened your conversation window and stared at your name without knowing what words to choose. Perhaps they have wanted to ask how you are doing but feared that one simple question would open a door to everything they have been trying to suppress. And if that is happening, understand that their hesitation belongs to them. You do not need to solve it for them. You do not need to send the first message just because you sense their uncertainty. Let them take responsibility for their own communication. If they want to confess, let them confess. If they want to apologize, let them apologize. If they want to rebuild trust, let them demonstrate that intention through consistent action. My beloved child, you have spent enough time wondering what someone else is thinking. Now it is time to ask yourself what you want. What kind of love do you want? What kind of relationship makes you feel safe, respected, valued, and emotionally secure? What kind of communication do you deserve? What boundaries do you need? These questions are more important than trying to predict the exact day or hour someone will return. Because your future should not depend entirely on another person's decision. Your life is bigger than this connection. Your purpose is bigger than this relationship. Your identity is bigger than whether one person chooses to stay. And yet, if two people genuinely love each other and both are willing to grow, there can be a powerful reunion. A reunion is not about returning to the old relationship exactly as it was. It is about creating something healthier than before. The old patterns must change. The old misunderstandings must be addressed. The old wounds must be acknowledged. Otherwise, people simply repeat the same cycle under a different chapter. My beloved child, if they come back, listen carefully to what they are saying. But also listen to what they are not saying. Are they acknowledging the past? Are they explaining what changed? Are they willing to answer questions? Are they respecting your pace? Are they patient with your healing? These details matter. Anyone can say, "I miss you." But not everyone is willing to rebuild trust slowly. Anyone can say, "I love you." But love becomes meaningful when it is demonstrated consistently. Anyone can promise a future. But commitment is proven through choices made repeatedly. So if a confession comes, do not let your emotions force you to decide immediately. You can receive the words without making an instant commitment. You can appreciate the honesty without forgetting what happened. You can forgive without rushing back into the same dynamic. You can remain open while still maintaining boundaries. My beloved child, this is your strength. Your strength is not in controlling whether they return. Your strength is in knowing that regardless of what they choose, you will not abandon yourself. And perhaps that is the greatest shift of all. Once you understand your worth, you stop begging people to recognize it. You stop performing for love. You stop over-explaining. You stop chasing answers from someone who refuses to communicate. You become peaceful. You become grounded. You become selective. You understand that love should meet you halfway. And that transformation can change everything. They may notice that you are no longer reacting the way you used to. They may notice that your energy feels different. They may notice that you have become calmer. They may notice that you no longer need their attention to feel valuable. And that realization can force them to confront their own behavior. My beloved child, perhaps they thought you would always be there. Perhaps they believed that no matter what happened, you would return. Perhaps they underestimated your strength. Perhaps they assumed that time would erase everything. But time did something unexpected. Instead of erasing the connection, it may have revealed the truth of it. It may have shown both of you what was real and what was based on fear. It may have separated genuine emotion from temporary attachment. It may have forced each person to look inward. And now, they may be standing at an emotional crossroads. One direction leads back into avoidance. Another direction leads toward honesty. And if they choose honesty, a confession could come. My beloved child, do not be surprised if their approach is hesitant at first. Sometimes people who have been emotionally guarded do not suddenly become perfectly expressive overnight. They may start with a simple message. They may ask how you are. They may react to something you post. They may find a small excuse to contact you. They may mention a memory. They may bring up something only the two of you understand. These small actions can be attempts to test whether communication is still possible. But again, do not do all the emotional work for them. If they open the door, let them walk through it. Let them explain. Let them speak. Let them reveal what has been hidden. You do not need to fill every silence. Sometimes silence gives the other person enough room to finally tell the truth. My beloved child, there may be a confession that includes regret. They may admit that they handled things poorly. They may admit that fear influenced their decisions. They may admit that they listened to other people instead of listening to their own heart. They may admit that they tried to move on but discovered that moving forward without resolving their feelings was impossible. They may admit that they realized your absence affected them more deeply than expected. They may admit that they did not understand your importance until you stopped giving them access to your attention. But whatever they confess, remember that their realization does not erase your experience. You are allowed to acknowledge both truths at the same time. They may regret what happened, and you may still need time to heal. They may love you, and you may still require proof. They may want another chance, and you may still decide to move slowly. This is not cruelty. This is wisdom. My beloved child, your heart does not need to become hard in order to protect itself. You can be compassionate and still have boundaries. You can be loving and still say no. You can forgive and still choose distance. You can hope and still remain grounded in reality. This is emotional maturity. And perhaps your soulmate connection is teaching you exactly that. The greatest love story is not always the one where someone comes back. Sometimes the greatest story is the one where you finally come back to yourself. And when you return to yourself, you become capable of recognizing healthy love instead of confusing intensity with destiny. My beloved child, something powerful happens when you stop asking, "How can I make them choose me?" and start asking, "Is this relationship worthy of the person I have become?" That question changes your entire position. You are no longer waiting to be selected. You are evaluating whether the connection meets your standards for mutual love and respect. If they return with sincerity, you can listen. If they return with excuses and the same old patterns, you can step back. If they return with genuine accountability, you can consider rebuilding slowly. If they return only because they are lonely, you will eventually see that too. Time reveals motives. Consistency reveals character. Actions reveal intention. So breathe, my beloved child. You do not need to force the future. You do not need to chase signs. You do not need to panic about what happens next. Focus on becoming peaceful enough to recognize the truth when it arrives. Because if this person is truly ready to confess, you will not need to drag the confession out of them. They will eventually find the courage to speak. And when they do, listen not only with your heart but also with your wisdom. Let your heart hear the emotion. Let your mind evaluate the reality. Let your boundaries protect your peace. Let your future remain larger than one person's decision. My beloved child, you have already survived the uncertainty. You have already survived the nights when you wondered why they were silent. You have already survived the moments when you questioned whether the connection meant anything. You have already survived disappointment. And because you survived those moments, you are stronger now. If they return, they are not meeting the same person they left behind. They are meeting someone who has learned the value of self-respect. Someone who understands that love should not require constant anxiety. Someone who knows that communication matters. Someone who understands that actions speak louder than promises. Someone who can say, I care about you, but I also care about myself. That is the version of you they may finally recognize. And perhaps this is why the energy around this connection feels different. Something has matured. Something has shifted. Something has become clearer. The person who once took your presence for granted may now be realizing that access to your heart was a privilege, not a guarantee. My beloved child, let this realization settle inside you. You do not have to convince anyone that you are valuable. You do not have to compete with anyone. You do not have to become someone else to be loved. The right person will recognize your worth without requiring you to destroy yourself proving it. And if your soulmate returns with a confession, let that confession be the beginning of a conversation, not the end of your discernment. Let them speak. Let them show you. Let them prove through consistency that their realization is real. And most importantly, continue choosing yourself every single day. Because whether this connection becomes a beautiful reunion or simply becomes a powerful chapter that taught you how to love yourself, you are still moving forward. Your story is not over. Your heart is not forgotten. Your future is not cancelled. And you are not behind. My beloved child, there is still much ahead of you. The next chapter does not need to be forced. Allow truth to reveal itself naturally. Allow people to show you who they are. Allow your intuition to become calmer rather than fearful. And remember this, when someone finally realizes your worth, you do not need to run toward them. Stand still in your dignity and allow them to demonstrate that they have truly understood what they almost lost.